You're listening to the Grow Landscapers podcast, the podcast where we delve deeper into landscape business, interviewing legends of the UK landscaping industry. So, join host Nick Ruddle as he explores their thoughts, insights and experiences. That's here on the Grow Landscapers podcast.
Hi and welcome to the Grow Landscapers podcast. I'm Nick Ruddle and today we're joined by someone who's highly respected in the industry, Alistair Bayford from Maylim. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Nick. Looking
Very
forward
good.
to the next 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be good. Lots of stuff to discuss. I'm really looking forward to speaking to you because, you know, I know that you've been in the industry a very long time, but unlike many of our guests we've had on the show so far, you come from a landscape architect background. So it'd be interesting to get your perspective from that kind of side of the fence. So,
Sure.
but also lots of Barley Awards, Chelsea Flower Show Awards along the way, you know, so I think pretty much well qualified to make it onto our podcast. And you've been recommended by a few very well-respected people. So here we are.
Yeah, I'm honoured to be both recommended and to share, I guess. I'm always up for sharing experiences in the career to perhaps inspire others and open up opportunities in the industry. So
yeah, well, that's why we're here, and that's why I created this podcast, is really to learn from people that have already been successful. And I know a lot of people who have already had on the show also, you know, just ask, you know, to share your ideas, share your knowledge, you know, it's very abundant like that. So it's a lovely industry to be in. So let's get cracking then, shall we? So how long have you been in the industry?
I've written here, depends whether you want the legal or the legally compliant answer or the non. I first accessed the industry when I was about 8 years old, I'd say. Used to go along to my dad's place of work. He was a landscape manager, used to manage quite a big estate. But if I wind the clock right back, family used to grow plums on the North Kent coast. That business eventually was sold because as a population we wanted cheap plums from South Africa and further afield. So I've always had horticulture stroke agriculture in my blood, so to speak.
Definitely.
And my grandfather used to kind of grow and sell fuchsias. So at the tender age of, you know, just a knee high, I was taking and striking fuchsia cuttings. And that's where my love of, I guess, horticulture stemmed from. Yeah. I then progressed into obviously that course of secondary school. Work experience year came up, went to see a careers advisor. What do you want to do? My interests were in, I guess, geography, biology, art. I said landscape architecture. That appeared to be too complex for him because it wasn't in his list of careers, or he didn't have access to employers. So he said to me, if you can find someone, by all means, do that. So I cold called a local practice, Liz Lake Associates. I then went and completed my week of work experience there and had an amazing time. It was at that point that they were working on the Grove in Chandler's Cross, which was a big hotel conversion stroke kind of golf course creation project. Yeah. I was floating large kind of airships up on the corners of the building footprint and doing the visual impact assessment for that extension. Wow. Then I went back there pretty much every summer. And Liz was a very common kind of feature in my career, you know, a great mentor for me. And she kind of said, if you want to make it, access the world of the wider built environment sector. So I worked in a plant nursery. Once you've potted up 100 of something, you soon get to kind of recognize it. I then went and worked for a contractor, both on the groundwork side and on the finishing side. So by the time I started my, I suppose, university undergrad degree at Writtle, I had a well-rounded view of the industry. And a lot of people ask me why I went to Writtle. The fundamentals of this industry and its success of it is we deal with two elements, soil and plants. You know, that's what the industry is renowned for. Yes, we do lots of hard landscaping and the like, but I wanted the fundamentals of a science degree behind me. You know, I love horticulture. I know how to grow and place plants, but I wanted that foundation. So I went to Writtle, and then I did my postgrad at Greenwich, joined Liz Lake as I suppose, a fully fledged landscape architect, and obtained my chartership with them. So 2008, became a chartered landscape architect. And then the Olympics came along. So I worked for Lee Valley Regional Park Authority as a project manager. So on the client side, overseeing their works on the park and the Olympic Fringe. And then got a phone call in 2011 from Nick Templehill at what was then the Landscape Group, to go across and mobilise the estate's management contract at Olympic Park and rebuild a construction offering in London and the South East. Was there for just over kind of 9 years, and then moved to Maylim last September.
Wow. So really was in your blood. I mean, 8 years old, whether that's legal or not, I think, you're just helping the old man out, I suppose.
Have I got white, have I been exposed to hand-arm vibration from an early age? Who knows? But
well,
it was great fun.
You're still alive to tell the tale. So hopefully so far so good. Very good. Very good. So you've been in the industry for a very long time, even before you went to college. I mean, the practical experience you had, is far greater than probably anyone else who I've spoken to about it. And then to get the formal qualifications and really, the science behind it, I think it's really, really important. Good. So been in the industry, how long do you think that is then? About
it's about
18,
23 to 27 years I've kind of been practicing in the industry. And I love the industry. It's great. It's such a rewarding place to be for numerous reasons, which I'm sure we'll explore.
So many great people, so abundant, and so much knowledge, and just nice, good eggs, aren't they? They just look really good, nice, genuinely helpful people. So what made you join Maylim then? What was it that made you join where you're currently at?
I guess you all get to a point in your career, and you know what you're good at, and you know what excites you, and delivering high quality public realm in London is something that excites me. And I've always looked up. Certainly in the early years, there was the 3 Ws. So there was the Willoughbys, Whitings, Waterers back then. You always kind of look up and aspire to be, I suppose, like them. And I've always kind of respected what Tom and the leadership team at Maylim have achieved in the last 20 years. The opportunity came along, and I guess that's, you either take it or you don't. So I did, and really settled in. I'm in a business development role, but it covers numerous things, from ESG through to our net zero journey, through to developing new markets and developing the business in new areas. So probably applying a lot of my skills learned over the years in building, I suppose, business units within larger businesses, and managing, and extending a new client base.
Brilliant. So when you started Maylim, started working at Maylim, what was the business like then? I mean, how many people, in terms of, are the offices the same, the kind of work you get involved with, the turnover? I mean, have you seen any changes in those things over the years?
I guess it's probably more appropriate kind of previous experience where, when I was at ID Verdi, I started a construction offering with 0 turnover and grew it to circa 10 million in the space of kind of 9 years.
Pretty impressive.
And there was a big jump in kind of 2018 where we doubled turnover, from 4 to 8. And then, I think with Maylim and the history of themselves, they've essentially grown in the last 20 years, primarily from, a labour only subcontractor to a principal contractor themselves. delivering lower value works right at the beginning to large contracts, so 10 million plus, major civil engineering and external works contracts for both big tier ones like Mace Multiplex and the like, to leading them themselves. So more recently, projects like Exchange Square for British Land, and Regent's Place for British Land. It's almost a case of they were certainly a step up for me. Coming from primarily local authority, public sector client base, and it's given me that, I suppose, that access and rewards that I would perhaps not have accessed where I was before.
Yeah, nice to get your teeth stuck into something different as well, isn't it? Another challenge, fresh challenge.
Absolutely.
Very good. Otherwise, you do sort of, you want more challenges, don't you? Because you can get a bit stale in one role if you don't think you're sort of developing, or you think you've got more to offer. Yeah. So, okay, so from your years of building the companies you've been at and developing those, what do you think the most important elements are to running a successful business? There's a million-dollar question.
I've got a list.
Right.
I mean, it's open-ended, isn't it? But I mean, top of that list is cash.
Cash is king. Yeah.
It's no good sat on the balance sheet. It's something I learned very early on. Had a great FD and then CEO in Doug Graham. He taught me that. I think you can't run a business without cash.
Yeah.
So that's, I'd say, primarily. Next is people.
Yeah, definitely.
We are so reliant on people, whether that be directly employed or subcontractors or agency. The likes of myself and other business leaders cannot achieve what they want to achieve without people. And with that, I've kind of put succession. I think our lives in business are based on succession planning. I've always developed people on that basis. We're always RAG status individuals in terms of those that are flight risk, those are have capacity and aptitude and desire to progress. So succession planning is key. And I think in my world, I've worked for private equity backed businesses and local authority, and I suppose now a privately owned business. Exit plans. I think a lot of people in business often forget that certainly if it's their own, what does the business look beyond my involvement? And an exit strategy, exit plan for those leaders of business is often slightly overlooked, because I think whatever you do, you always plan, certainly in my world, whether I own a business or not, for tomorrow. If I'm not here, who's sitting in my seat?
Yeah,
that's really important. Planning, business planning. I think a lot of your guests have talked about robust business plans. I've been intrigued listening to them as to their different approaches. So some have long-term business plans, and other, have very short-term, 12-week.
Yeah.
Run a business on a quarter, which is something that really applied in my days at Ardy Verdi. Plan for risk. We live in a very volatile, up and down world, particularly in construction, where risks do exist.
Yeah.
Communication, engagement, that's absolutely key, whether that's externally with clients, internally with people. And I've got service to clients. We're a business, whether you're B2B or B2C, we are reliant on a client base. You're as good as your last job. So that's something that is incredibly important. And I kind of put the bits that set you out. So what is your USP? Innovation is absolutely key. Standing out from what is a saturated market. There's lots of people doing this at various scales, and it doesn't matter whether you're a million turnover business, a 200,000, or a multi-million turnover business. Your sales and who you're working for are paramount. And today, more importantly than ever, when you look at both diversity challenges, skills, climate change, biodiversity emergencies, I think we all need to innovate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And as I've said, I suppose last one on here is authentic leadership.
Expand on that.
Well, I've in my career, I've had the benefit of great leaders and not so great leaders.
Yeah, yeah,
And authenticity in leadership is absolutely key. Transparency. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And
yeah.
I think a lot of people, and certainly something I've learned over the years, is if you don't talk about the problems,
Mm.
they never get fixed. And they can be catastrophic problems, or they can be, at the start insignificant, but actually manifest themselves into something more.
They tend to, don't they? They don't tend to go away. They tend to get bigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Communicate early enough, you can
And,
avoid a lot of that stuff.
and I remember, first P&L I oversaw that, I think there were a couple of really tricky months. And, I almost feared, it was probably that, what have I learned? What mistakes have I made? You fear that call to say, we've made a loss this month.
Mm.
And for whatever reason, whether it's, people looking at you as you're incapable of kind of looking after it, but that's what, I remember a conversation with Doug. It doesn't matter what it is, good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah.
You need to be able to plan for it. If we're going to make a loss, how do we fund that? Yeah.
If you don't know about it, you don't talk about it, how can you fix it? There's no point in burying your head in the sand and hoping it goes away, because that would just be very well, it just won't really get you where you need to get to, will it? It'd be very irresponsible to do that, especially when you've got so many mouths to feed. You've got to face up to these things and
definitely
take ownership as a business owner. Wow, there's some brilliant things in there. I mean, unbelievable. And I hope people do sort of take some of these things away. Cash is king. I mean, at the moment where we are in the economy and looking to go into a massive recession potentially, the people that have the cash and have nice little sort of nest eggs there, they're going to be able to ride anything. So and having the right people, looking after your people. And planning ahead. If you plan ahead, less things become urgent. So the more you're in control, the more you can foresee things, and you can plan and adapt for those kind of things. And if you've got the right people on the bus, they'll step up to the plate, and you'll be fine and better off when you come out the other side as well. Tend to be survival of the fittest. Very good, cool. Right. So what other little questions do I have for you here today then? What are the biggest mistakes that you personally may have made? You alluded to some there, about maybe the P&L, but what lessons did you learn from any mistakes that you may have?
I kind of jumped into that kind of reporting good, bad, or ugly. I mean, I put vulnerability. Vulnerability in your early career is how you might perceive to be, and I think we can often shy away from the difficult discussions, decisions when you're at the start of your career. So that's something I've learned along the way. Firmness. Your client isn't always right. And I think sometimes as business owners or people in the business leading divisions can often fall into that world of client pleasers, or always saying yes, putting yourselves under pressure. Of course, there's always that constructive way of communicating that, so you don't sour a relationship. But I've always been a yes person, sometimes to my detriment. Which means the sacrifices you're making are probably more than you should in business. So that's probably the biggest mistake I've made along the way, where you've either overstretched yourself or the team around you because you've said yes when you perhaps should have said no.
I think it's easy to say yes, but no seems to be one of the hardest words. It's only 2 letters, but it's one of the hardest words for people to say. Because
I think we get, it's almost that if I say no, what does that mean for the future? And in our world, does the client find another contractor, and then that relationship is built and you lose that client? So, but equally, if you say yes and you put yourselves under pressure, you're more likely to fail. In that sense.
I think they respect you more if you do say no occasionally, and for these reasons why. You can justify it. It's just not no for the sake of it. But I think they lean on your expertise, really. And if you say, look, actually, that's not really going to work, then that's what they're paying you for, I suppose, as well. So, but it's the same with a lot of people, isn't it? They say, we can do that, and then end up not charging for stuff as well. And, just a bit of a slippery slope. Okay, then. So, would you say that those were major setbacks? You know, is that a major thing for you, or is there any one big kind of challenge that you had that you had to overcome? If there was something like that, you know, some major obstacle, you faced up to it, you did something about it. What was the outcome? Have you got any examples?
Yeah, I think without getting on a soapbox about skill shortage and people shortage, but you know, I think that's been the biggest challenge throughout my career, finding good people. And I remember mobilising the Olympic Park contract, and it was just me in a van in a big car park with no team. There was no transferring workforce, and we had a contractual obligation to recruit from the host boroughs. Believe me, people in the boroughs of Newham and Waltham Forest didn't know what horticulture was, let alone aspired to be in horticulture. And I think when people ask me what is my, I suppose, what is my proudest reward for being in this industry, it's walking back to Olympic Park now and seeing people that weren't in the industry 10 years ago, that I took through their kind of boot camp to get them ready for work, to take them through their MVQ level 1, 2, and 3, and see them running the park.
They're still there, running it.
They're still there, and I think we'll always, as business, struggle with the people jigsaw.
Yeah.
It's always been the biggest challenge and hurdle for me, because if you've got them, if you've got access to knowledge, you can solve anything. That's, you know, I've never shied away from a project that's challenging, because you find a way, and you find the knowledge and the expertise that you need to deliver it.
It's so important to have the right people with the right skills and attitude, mindset, and like you say, there's a lot less of those than there are maybe some of the kind of employees that you wouldn't want.
Yeah,
you know, but it's finding them, and when you do find them, obviously look after them and treat them well, wrap them up in cotton wool, and why would they want to go anywhere else? You know, enrich their lives and give them opportunities, train them, develop them, and they're worth investing into, aren't they, those people? Okay, then. So, what 3 tips would you give to someone, anyone listening now, to improve the efficiencies and profits of a business, if you've ever been involved in that side of things?
Planning is key. I think matching resource to what you've got in the order book is absolutely paramount. I mean, in a grounds maintenance business, you know, efficiencies, people are your biggest cost. So finding efficient ways of working and planning your routes and rounds are key to kind of minimize that. And the likely impacts of that are also reduction in fuel costs and, you know, other overheads that might be required for that business. In construction, it's certainly more focused on materials, relationships with suppliers. We talk about buying gains, but you know, buying gains aren't just about what it costs, it's service. It's pointless paying £2 less for a cubic meter of soil and it never turning up.
That's
and you're looking down on LADs. But you know, we can often be chasing profit. You know, yes, businesses need to be making profit, profit for reserves, profit for investment, profit for shareholders, or you know, if you're employee-owned trust for the employees. But I think sometimes people can be too focused on bottom line and sacrifice quality and service. So I think in all respects, you almost need to be true to your values and deliver on what you've promised, over and above cutting a corner or looking at a number and saying that doesn't meet our, you know, overall expectations.
Brilliant. When I talk to you, I can just see the depth of knowledge you have and all the experience you've had over the years when you bring things like that out. And I think, you know, it's priceless information for people to latch onto and to focus on, because yes, you've got to make a profit, but there's so many different ways. Profit is a byproduct of doing everything else really, really well. And if you deliver
absolutely.
well, you buy well, you choose the right suppliers, you've got all these elements that can directly affect the profitability and the gross margin of a project. And if you just focus on doing that brilliant job, and everyone does, and everyone's working in the right way consistently, you're going to get profit anyway. So you can't focus on the profit. The profit is a byproduct of actions. It's an outcome of activity.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess the one thing that I always run any business buys, let's not necessarily get excited about gross profit. Let's look at EBITDA, because ultimately that's what's left after you've taken off your overhead, after you've taken off your tax,
Exactly.
and the rest of it. So we've always tracked performance based on EBITDA, because
That's what really counts at the end of the day.
yeah,
I think the gross margin is a vital financial KPI.
definitely.
But
Yeah,
you've got to know what your break-even gross margin is, so that you know that anything above that, you will be making good profit on your EBITDA. So, but it's amazing how many people who I speak to and start coaching don't really understand the importance of that gross margin, and even in their quotes that go out sometimes, they don't have that kind of calculation in there. It's just like, well, there's the cost, there's direct labor, there's materials. Oh, we'll whack on an extra percentage on top, but that's about as scientific as sometimes it gets. But they've not had the knowledge, the experience or the education of the financial side of running a business. But as we all know, it's probably the most, or one of them, if not the most important places to put your efforts. Okay, very good, very good. Loads of gold nuggets in our conversation today, Alistair. So I think you've touched on my next question already about being the most rewarding. What part of being in business you found the most rewarding? So it's developing people, by the sounds.
definitely developing people, and then environmental change. We work in an industry that makes significant change. We work in an industry where the climate change solution is being focused on. Almost mitigating climate change through what we do. So it's great to go back to a space that's been transformed as a result of your work, and even to go back there 10 years later and see it established is even more rewarding.
Yeah, well, the fact that you're making a difference to the world as well, what you're doing as a result of your actions, you're making a positive difference to the sustainability, part of our planet. And it's only going to get more and more and more and more important going forward, as you know. Which is a great thing, obviously. So if you could give any advice to someone who's currently sitting in their business, whether they're a landscape contractor, a designer, an architect, landscape architect, or anyone within a business, that they're stuck and they can't really see the wood for the trees, don't know what step to take next, what kind of advice would you give to them?
It's quite simple. Look up, look out. There is a wealth of difference out there in the industry. What are your competitors doing that you're not? What innovations are coming through that can change the direction of travel for your business? Try different offerings. It does what do your capabilities and the people within your business allow you to diversify what you're offering, be it adding on arboricultural services to a current business, or selling something else alongside what you do as part of your core business. And don't be afraid of change. Often people, change is considered difficult, and yes, believe me, change is difficult. It's difficult for everybody, but often it can just change direction of travel and bring back a spark in what you're doing, so that you've got that new surge of energy to kind of grow the business.
Brilliant, amazing. So look up, look out. I've never heard that one before. That's great. Wonderful. So we're nearly done now, Alistair. I know you're a busy man, so I won't keep you too long. If you could give one or two important golden nuggets to someone trying to build their business today, if there was just one or two, what would they be?
So it's one, but it's got two relevances.
Right.
Understand the rhythm on the ground.
Full of it today.
Your people will give you a good indication of how good your business is.
Really? Wow.
That's staff engagement. That's what they really think of leadership team, whether they really consider you to be authentic, because if they're not there, they're somewhere else. That's absolutely paramount. And of course, it applies to the supply chain and the client base.
Yeah.
Suppliers will soon talk about contractors being poor payers, and just as cash is key to your business, it's also key to your supply chain. So that's of paramount importance. And clients talk. It's a very small world. So you're as good as your last job, in my mind. So being well connected to that kind of environment at ground level does enable you to react to, those areas which are perhaps considered to be poor performance that need fixing.
Absolutely brilliant. So never be complacent, really. Always got to listen to your staff, listen to the people, look what's going on, at the coalface, and get feedback.
Yeah, you've just mentioned one absolute key golden nugget, and that's listen. That is, you've got to have ears open and just stop, I guess, talking for a moment and just listen and compute to what's going on.
Yeah, because you can get quite blinkered in a way if you're in the office and you're just speaking to people at management level or not really getting what's going on the ground. You could be quite naive, really, to think that to think everything's okay, and actually there's issues there, but you just sort of burying your head in the sand. So I think, listen, asking great questions, listening to people, don't be complacent, get their feedback, listen to what they're telling you, and then make a decision. But well, Alistair, there's been some really different answers I've not had from anyone so far, and it really does show you a real deep level and understanding and expertise in all different facets of running a business. It's I can see there's a lot of experience in there, and it's been brilliant listening to you because I made a whole page of notes here. I'm thinking, that's really good. That's really good. And then other people are going to benefit from your knowledge, your expertise, your skills and experience. Whether it be people listening to this or people that I coach in the landscape industry and in other industries. A lot of these things are general principles that can be applied to all companies.
Absolutely.
But some really good, lots of great tangible stuff in there. So I think we're done in time. So that maybe if someone could get in touch with you, or if they want to talk to you or use your services in any way, shape or form, what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So I'm all over social media, handles Alistair Bayford. That's LinkedIn, Insta, Twitter. And then email address alistair.bayford@maylim.co.uk.
There we go. And there we are. That's amazing. Thanks so much for your time, Alistair. Really
no problem. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And I think everyone's going to enjoy that. There's so much great stuff in there. These podcasts are getting more and more popular. I'm speaking to more and more people, and they are listening to all of them. So they listen to one or two, and then they go, "Oh, I've done them all. When are you doing another one?"
Yeah, no, same here. I've listened to one, got captivated by it, and as a start, I've been fascinated by the different approaches individuals.
It's brilliant. It's so good. So many nice people. Always wanted to give, like yourself. Been a pleasure. Thanks for your time. And I'll catch up with you at an event, no doubt, in the industry very soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Cheers, Nick.
Cheers, Alistair. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Grow Landscapers podcast. To get in touch and see how we can help you with your business by emailing nick@nickruddle.com.